advantage of our second lunch. So feel free, if you're not from Mount Lake Terrace High School, you guys are more than welcome to come down and sit here in front. We'll get things started in just a few minutes. Thanks. Once again, good morning. I just want to check in here because I know we have students coming from several other schools, and I don't want to start until they get here, but I also want to start. So let me just check to see if certain people are in the house. Is Snohomish here? The Mighty Panthers from up north, yes. Is Auburn Mountain View here? I was told that there might be some people from Lake Stevens. Is that true? Are they here? You're so reserved. That's very nice. And also, Granger. Welcome. Pretty cool. I have lived here my entire life. Where is Granger High School? Where? All right. You go to Gorst and turn left. I get it. Okay, cool. That's good. That's wonderful. All right, so those of you who are not from Mount Lake Terrace High School, hopefully you guys checked in at our table up front to let the folks know how many of you there are, because I understand that the ACLU is going to give you something to eat on your way out, which I think is pretty darn nice. And we also just want to make sure that we aren't missing anybody. Is there any other school other than Mount Lake Terrace represented here? I want to make sure. Who? Where? Ballard, of course. I'm sorry, I didn't even see you there, Michael. Welcome. Anybody else? Well, we don't need anybody else. We got Granger, we got Ballard, we got Snohomish, we got Lake Stevens, we got and we have Mount Lake Terrace. You know what? I think we're going to go ahead and get started because you guys are just rowdy enough. All right, I don't want to encourage it anymore. Let me tell you about a couple of quick things before I formally introduce our guests. I understand that you kids are on the Twitters these days. So if you want to, you can use the hashtag Terrace, that's T-E-R-R-A-C-E, not terrorist, for crying out loud. People always ask me, where do you teach? Well, I teach Terrace kids. And they go, you teach terrorist kids? What's going on now? Mount Lake Terrace, that we sometimes shorten it because you get carpal tunnel syndrome if you have to type Mount Lake Terrace every time you want to do something. So you can use the hashtag Terrace Tinker Tour, and we'll take some questions at the end of the presentation using some of those questions. And if there are less fortunate ones back home who would like to join us live, our Hawk Broadcasting Network that you see set up around here is streaming this live. And if you follow, there's a link right now up on the Hawkeyes Twitter feed at MTHS Hawkeye. And there's a link. I would read the URL to you, but it would sound like I was reading Martian or something because I don't know a couple of the characters that are in the URL. So if you just go to the link that's up on the MTHS Hawkeye Twitter feed, you can click on that or send it, forward it, email it, do whatever it is you guys are doing to people. And you can then follow it afterwards if you want to watch this again and share it with other people. So that's pretty cool. All right, are we about ready? All right. So I got to get my official notes out here now. My trusty reporter's notebook. All right. Let's do this. Once again, welcome to Mount Lake Terrace High School. My name is Vince DeMuro, and I teach English, journalism, photography, film. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, so I get to do a little bit of everything. And am terribly, terribly honored and humbled to have these folks here today. It is really, truly a dream come true to have both Mike Easton and Mary Beth Tinker here. And I want to acknowledge a couple other folks who have helped make this happen. So the Student Press Law Center, and if you journalists are ever in need of any assistance, the Student Press Law Center is your best friend, splc.org, and Executive Director Frank Lomonti, and Mike is a former SPLC lawyer. The ACLU of Washington with John Flodine and his whole staff helping make this all happen. Thank you very much. We also have representatives from the Washington Journalism Education Association, including our Executive Director, Kathy Schreier, who's right there. And sitting to her right, my left, is Fern Valentine, who we all know and love as First Amendment Fern. And she's wearing her First Amendment shirt, and she has her black armband on. And I gotta watch myself because she always keeps me in line, so hopefully I'm doing okay. How am I doing so far, Fern? Okay, good. I also want to acknowledge and thank, and I mean this very sincerely, our administrative team here at Mount Lake Terrace High School is phenomenal. And quite honestly, without their leadership, things like this and the environment that we have here at Terrace that really understands and respects and holds accountable those of us who practice the First Amendment, they are to be thanked enormously for allowing us to basically say, yeah, go ahead and do whatever you want to do, interrupt the whole school day, just make it work, it'll be fine. So most of them were here last assembly, but if any of them sneak in, I will probably try to acknowledge them as well. Also our Hawk Broadcasting Network folks with advisor Angela Camo, and the Hawkeye staff, Hawkeye and the Hawkeye Online, Nick Fiorillo, the editor-in-chief, and the entire Hawkeye staff. So, all right, let's get right to it. We are very proud to have with us today, clearly, if not the most recognizable face of the First Amendment as it relates especially to teachers and students. But without her courage, without her passion, a lot of the rights that we enjoy just simply would not be. And growing up and following this case as a young person, and then studying about it in school, and then being fortunate to be able to live, work, and teach in an environment where her actions made a difference for me. I just want to say that I have very few heroes in my life, people who I really think of very, very highly and want my own children to be around and want them to know about these people. And Mary Beth Tinker has always been on that list since I can remember having that kind of a thought. So to have her here today really truly is a dream come true for me, and I am so pleased to be able to share this presentation with you, and so thankful that so many of you took the time out of your day to come be with us. So, enough from me. Let's get Mike Heaston and Mary Beth Tinker out here. Would you please help me welcome them to the stage?
Thank you. Wow, Vince O'Meara, I can't believe it.
What a welcome you've got. Man, what a way to end it off, yeah?
This is like over the top.
It's over the top, yeah.
You guys are over
Just
the top
beautiful.
here.
It's beautiful. So.
We're winding up our Tinker Tour, Mike.
We are 41 states, about 25,000 miles. This is about our 100th stop across the country. Yeah.
This is our last U.S. stop today. Wow. Did you guys go over the finish line as you came in the front door? Did you see the finish line? Oh, that was too cool. Tinker Tour finished, but we're not finished, really, because we're going to keep speaking up and keep standing up for you and for the First Amendment. Yeah. Mike Heaston has been standing up for kids, for students in the press, in journalism, for some 20-some years, and the Journalism Education Association, wow. But you know who the best ones are to stand up for you, young people? That would be you, yeah. Yeah, that's more powerful. When you stand up for yourselves, that really, man, people start to take notice. Like these kids in Virginia recently, they cut their band program. So the kids, these 7th and 8th graders, show up at the county hearings with their empty clarinet cases and their empty saxophone cases. And they end up on the front page of the Washington Post with quotes. This little girl said, "Without our band program, we can't play the music in our hearts." I know, it's too sweet, man. Everybody's reading that article. That was powerful. That's the power of journalism and the power of speaking up and having a voice to stand up for yourselves. And that's kind of how I was raised, is that, you know, it's a good way of life to speak up for the things you care about. It makes life interesting and meaningful, and I get to meet all these wonderful people like you. And I found out it's even fun. Yeah, it's fun. It's a better way of life. But in order to do that, you're going to need some rights. Think so? Yeah, you're going to need your rights. How about the First Amendment? Like the First Amendment? Yeah, okay. Now, is the First Amendment for young people? A trick question. Is the First Amendment for you? Yeah, okay. Well, they did this study, and they're saying, oh, these kids today, somebody's always saying, these kids today, right? These kids today don't even know their rights. It's a shame. But then they went out and asked the teachers. Where's the teachers? Teachers, yay, teachers! Well, I'm sorry, teachers, but they went out and asked the teachers and the adults if they knew their rights. Guess what happened? They didn't know their rights. Let's see how you all do. Okay, what's one of the rights of the First Amendment? Okay, come on. Whoa. There's a man who knows about the freedom of speech. All right, just hop on up here. All right. How many Americans do you think knew about the freedom of speech? 50? 50? 15, 40?
So you're ready.
Tell me your name. Jay, good job. Okay, now help us out with this little review. What percent of Americans do you think knew about that? 17%. Wow. Really? Could you add like 43 to that? Huh? 43 plus 17? Who's got it? All right, 60. Okay. Woo-hoo. Jay, good job. Okay, so what is another one of the rights? Okay. Freedom of religion. Nice going. Okay. Just hop on up here. Oh, yeah, whatever. Okay, so freedom of religion, that's a 2-for-1 special because you have a right to have your religion, number one, and nobody can force you to have a religion, right? There's two sides of that, the Establishment Clause and the free expression. Okay, so tell us your name. Karina, oh yeah, what school are you guys from? Terrace and Terrace, okay. Karina, Only 16% of people knew about the freedom of religion. That is sad. But you do. Good going. Okay, what else? What's another one? What are these other schools? Who's from a different school? Yeah, okay. All right, come on. Yes. What school are you from? Come on, man. All right. What right are you going to say? Freedom to assemble. All right. Wow, I can't believe you got that one because guess how many Americans know that? 5 + 4 is 9. All right. Good job. Freedom to assemble. It's just your size too, man. It's perfect. What is your name? And what school are you from? Terrace. Okay. He's like, that's not. Good job. Okay, freedom to assemble. Only 9% of Americans. You beat out 91% of Americans. Yeah, we had any non-terrace people around here? Oh, he's just like, yeah. Okay, come on. Hop over 4 rows of chairs and come on in. All right. What right are you going to say? Press. There's kind of a nice one. Anybody like the freedom of press? Yeah. Perfect. What is your name? Ashley. Go Ashley. Ashley knows about the freedom of the press. And how many Americans do? 20 times 2 is 40. All right. If you want to write an article for your paper, do you have to get it approved by the government? A trick question. No. Thank goodness for that. Jeez, that would be terrible. Okay, what's the very last one? Almost nobody else knows about this. It's so sad. Okay, they got a few girls who... Okay, you pick one. You pick mine. Why do I have to do all this one? All right. Let's see if you can get the one that only 2% of Americans know. You got it. You got it? Yep. You're amazing. Tell me your name.
Teddy.
Teddy. All right, Teddy. Woo. Just beat out 98% of Americans. Now, are these rights for all of you? Yeah. And, one thing. Do these rights have limitations? Sorry. Why? Because, can you go out in the middle of the street tonight and be like, hey, we want to assemble. Come on, everybody. Let's go. Rush hour, no problem. Can you? Block party in the middle of the block. Can you do it? No? You wish, right? Because other people have rights, too. They might want to get home from work. They might want to get home from school, right? In one piece. So, yes, there are limitations, of course. Okay, so thank you all for that little review. Very nice. Good job, guys. First Amendment, yeah. And you know what? Young people, like all of you, have been bringing it to life all these years in our democracy. You know, we had a democracy. We're starting out in a place in our country where our democracy, we had slaves building our White House and building our Capitol. Wow, that's a problem. How about we the people? Did it include all the people? No? Was anybody in this room included? Do we have any white men with property here? Wait, anybody? Might have one or two, I don't know. Yeah, we the people! Oh, the great democracy! Let's have some slaves over and have them build our Capitol. That's a great idea. Sometimes you have to wonder about adults, you know, what they're thinking. Oh, anyway, but that's another story. So that's where we're coming from. So we had to grow, we had to get better, we had to, improve our world. Which is kind of a good thing because it gives us plenty to do. We never have to run out of things to do. We can always work on making our world better. And that's what young people have been doing all through history. You know, at the turn of the century, between 1800 to 1900, about 1 million children were working in the United States. Yeah. Some of them 12-hour days, 16 hours. Who were the first factory workers? Children, yeah. And their conditions weren't always so great, right? They would get their little fingers cut off, their little hands cut off in the factories and the machines and things like that. Okay, so this little girl named Hannah Hansen, she was 11 years old. This was in 1820. She goes, let's start the Factory Girls Association. Yeah, go Hannah. She starts this group and they start standing up and speaking up for better conditions. They didn't get them right away, but with their allies, young people do have adult allies that also want you to have, things better. They kept speaking up, standing up. Eventually we got laws, child labor laws. Young people have worked in the mines, in the factories, in the farms and plantations. Young people have fought in every single war. Young people have helped to build our country. And young people have also been involved in journalism. Yeah, that's great. Because without journalism, how would we even know what's going on? How would we know about little Hannah Hansen? How would we know about the factory conditions? We wouldn't know what's going on, so we can make a better world. So we have to have journalism. And I'll tell you about the power of journalism in my own life when I was growing up. During a time like now of great inequality and so many things, so many decisions we have to make in our world then, and like now we do. We had war, like we have now, a war economy, where people were saying, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have enough money for your school, but there always seemed to be plenty of money for war. And we had racial discrimination. We even had our very own marriage equality issue. What was it? It wasn't gay marriage. It was interracial marriage. That was illegal in something like 20-some states, right? Until this really nice couple, a young couple, they fell in love in high school in Virginia. What was their name? They challenged that. Loving. Man, go, buddy. Woo, Loving, yeah. They spoke up, they stood up, they got married, they got arrested. We had our very own marriage equality. Okay, so that's the times I was growing up in. But, like around the, late 50s, middle 50s actually, when I was just a little child, this young woman, a black woman, refused to give up her seat on a bus. And she sparked the civil rights revolution. What was her name? Oh, yeah, Rosa Parks. I knew you were going to say Rosa Parks. But I was thinking of Claudette Colvin. Yeah, Claudette was 15 years old. She did the same exact thing Rosa Parks did, but a year earlier. Yeah, she said her history teacher taught her about her rights. She got beaten, dragged off the bus, and a court suit started. It worked its way through the courts. She finally won that case. In the meantime, Rosa Parks did the same thing a year later. We don't hear much about Claudette, right? Why? Because she was young. And so many other young people through history. So I was growing up during this time, and then one day I was watching TV with my sister Hope, and we saw these kids on TV that were amazing. Talk about the power of journalism. We were way up in Iowa, where my dad was a Methodist preacher. He kept getting in trouble, though, at his church because he would speak up for, like the swimming pool wouldn't allow black kids to swim there. So he would speak up against that, and he kept getting in trouble, but it's all right. That's how he raised us. Okay, so we were watching TV one day, my little sister Hope, and we saw these kids on TV in a faraway place called Birmingham, Alabama. They were amazing. They were so strong and brave. And that year, Martin Luther King was trying to get everybody to stand up against the Jim Crow laws because it was a law to have segregation there. And he said, that's not right. That's not democracy. We can do better. And so many young people said, yes, you are right. We will join in on that. We will stand up and speak up. He couldn't get the adults to do it in the numbers that he needed. But that year, 2,000 kids, right around now, May 2nd, tomorrow was the day. 51 years ago, almost 2,000 kids came marching out of their schools, out of their church, 16th Street Baptist Church. They were singing songs like, we shall overcome, we shall overcome. And they were singing their songs, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. And they were just letting their little light shine like kids always do. Standing up for democracy, for a better world. They came out of that church, and guess what happened? What did happen? Dogs! What did dogs do? They bit them, attacked them, ripped their legs, ripped their clothes, the police dogs. And what about the firemen? They put the fire hoses on them. And they shot the kids across the street with their fire hoses. Did you ever see these photos? Okay, check it out. You have some. The power of journalism. These photos went viral. They went all over the world. How the great democracy of the world was treating its little children who dared to speak up for real democracy and to put it into action. And the U.S. was shamed. They said, we better start doing something about that. The federal government started slowly getting involved. Before that, they had said, no, we're going to wash our hands. We're not going to get involved in that. The federal government started getting involved. These children made such a difference that Martin Luther King said it was the turning point of the Civil Rights Revolution, and that he'd never seen anything like it. These brave children. They built outdoor pens for them with barbed wire, and they put the kids in there, but it didn't stop them. We thought they were amazing. Oh boy, we watched it all on TV, thanks to the power of journalism. I said, those kids are really something, but I knew I wasn't like that. I was shy. And I had to go roller skating on the weekends, yeah, and study for my math class, because I was a top student and I liked to study, especially math. Okay, that was my favorite subject. The next year was Mississippi Freedom Summer. What was happening in Mississippi? Freedom. 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 Everybody say freedom. Everybody say freedom. 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 Yeah, everybody's down there singing and standing up and speaking up. Oh no, guess what would happen? They would get killed, attacked, burned, bombed. People like Herbert Lee. He dared to go and try to register to vote. He was the father of 6 children. They came and dragged him out of his truck, shot him dead, right there. A white legislator. Do you think that guy ever had to pay 1 bit for that? No, he was off scot-free. That's how it was in Mississippi. And that year, young people again stood up and spoke up. And they started a group called the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. It was led by a man named Robert Moses. Where's Moses? I think he left. He was here earlier. Robert Moses. And they said, we can do better. This is how kids think, how young people think. We can do better. We can imagine a better world. And then young people take action. That's the next step. Take action to make it happen. And these young people did that. They stood up and spoke up that year in Mississippi. And we're just coming up on the anniversary of it, when the word went out all over the United States for college students to come to Mississippi and put democracy into action. They trained up at Western College for Women in Ohio. They had to learn how to act when someone comes up and spits on you. And when someone says, I know where you're staying, I'm going to be over later tonight, and you're not going to be alive tomorrow. They had to learn how to act. And you can read their letters. It'd be a great school project. Mississippi Freedom Summer. These young, brave people went to Mississippi, and as soon as they got there, 3 of them disappeared off the face of the earth. The Ku Klux Klan had got them. They snatched them up, and their bodies disappeared. Their names were Cheney, Schwerner, and Goodman. And people searched and searched, and the FBI was kind of looking for them, not very much, but when they finally found them at the end of the summer, it was August 5th, they found their bodies buried in a dam. The Ku Klux Klan had tortured them and killed them. They found the bodies August 5th, the same very day that out in the Gulf of Tonkin, near Vietnam, a U.S. Navy ship claimed that it had been attacked by the North Vietnamese. It turns out they hadn't been, but it didn't stop the U.S. Congress from voting unanimously to escalate the war, the Vietnam War. All this was going on that summer, 1964. And before they found those bodies in Mississippi, a call went out all over the country for people to come there to help. And my parents went. I guess they thought that's what Jesus would do. And so they went there because they were involved with the church and they believed in putting their ideals into action. And And when they got there, they were staying in the house of an old lady out in the country. It was very dark in Mississippi that night, and the Ku Klux Klan was everywhere. And that night when they went to sleep, this lady told my parents, now tonight when you go to sleep, you sleep in the back so that when the shooting starts, you'll be safe back there. And my parents said, what, shooting? No, it's okay, and don't worry, I'm used to it. You go in the back. She said, my parents were scared and nervous, and they went in the back, and they tried to sleep, but they couldn't. And sure enough, in the middle of the night, the shots ring out, and they rushed up to the front, and here's the lady crouched by the window there, looking out in the dark night, Mississippi, at a pickup truck that's shooting at her house and had just shot and killed her dog. And my parents said, quick, let's call the sheriff. We've got to call the sheriff. What do you think she said? Can't do, that is the sheriff. That is the sheriff. That's where we're coming from. That's how the law has been used to keep injustice going. And so my parents lived through that night, and they came home and they told us stories. They got back home on my 12th birthday. And I guess that was their birthday present to me, those stories about courage and people speaking up for democracy. And all those young people that had spent their summer down there, risking their lives. Freedom Summer. The next year was 1965. I was just turning 13 years old that Christmas, and my dad, the minister, the preacher, he would light the Yule candles and pray with us from the Bible about Jesus' message of love and forgiveness, and he would light the candles. It was very beautiful. But then when my little sister Hope and I and us kids, we watched TV, when we were cooking dinner at night, what do we see on TV? We didn't see love and forgiveness like the adults were talking about. We saw what the adults were really doing, which was war, killing, bombing. We saw little children rushing out of their huts that were on fire. It looked like the whole world was on fire, and there was something called napalm, which is a sticky gel that was made up here in Michigan. It's basically chemical warfare. It was dropped by the U.S. military onto the Vietnamese, and when it lands on your skin, you can't wash it off. It just burns. Now I'm a nurse, and I've taken care of lots of kids that get burned. And I know how painful that is. At the time, I didn't really know, but I could see that people were suffering, and that children were running around, their faces scared. And it made me scared. It made me upset. And then there was the body bags for the soldiers. Again, the power of journalism. Every night on TV, we'd hear a man named Walter Cronkite say, the body count tonight in Vietnam is 8 soldiers dead. Next day, 10 soldiers have been killed in Vietnam. The body count is 10. Every day, us kids are watching this on TV and getting more and more upset, more and more worried as the boys in our neighborhood were being called up to the draft. And my brother John was turning 15, and I knew that he could be drafted soon. We didn't know what to do. We saw the news. It's like a little 6th grader told me recently. She said, I see the news and I feel sad, but I don't know what to do. And that's exactly how I felt. And so some of the older kids, well, the war, some people say war affects children more than anybody. We were affected by watching it on TV, but some people like Mike, where's Mike? Mike Easton experienced the war a little more directly as a child. So we're going to hear from Mike for a few minutes about how he was going through this time period as a little child growing up.
Well, good morning, everybody. And thank you for what a way to end our Tinker Tour after 25,000 miles. And I'm actually live up in Ferndale, so I'm just a couple hours from home, so I'm going to be there in just a little bit. But thank you very much, Vince, and everybody for putting this together and making us feel this awesome. So Mary Beth was just talking about this big, important year of 1963. Big year in the history of our country, the Birmingham Children's March, and that was the year Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech, right? And JFK was assassinated. But the big event that Mary Beth didn't mention was, in 1963, was my birthday. I was actually born in 63. So, in fact, one of the highlights of the Tinker Tour was on my birthday. The night of my birthday, we actually were invited to the Supreme Court back in D.C. by Justice Alito, where we talked about the Tinker case. So, pretty awesome way to spend your 50th. But I was born down in Arizona. I was born at Williams Air Force Base. And the reason we were down at Williams Air Force Base is because my dad was in college, and when in the 60s, because of the Vietnam War, if you were a male and you were in college, you had to be in ROTC, in the ROTC. And so my dad was in the ROTC program. When he graduated, he went down to Williams to start pilot training. And it just so happened when we were down at Williams, the same time we were down there, my uncle and his family were also down there. My uncle Tom, who was my mom's only brother, our older brother, and actually only sibling, my Aunt Margie. They had 4 kids at the time, and they were all older, although even the oldest was only about 6 years old. So we're a young family. We have these wonderful pictures of the time that we were down there, the 2 families. You know, just gathered around, and I'm this little baby kind of being tossed around like a little rag doll, and I think it was a very happy time for the families. I don't have, obviously I was too young to have much recollection of that. But a couple years later, in September of 1966, my uncle Tom was sent to Vietnam, and a little less than a month after he got there, his plane was shot down, and he was killed. And at the time, he actually left behind 5 of my cousins because my Aunt Margie was pregnant with my cousin Chris when he was sent off to Vietnam. So at that time I was only about 2.5 years old. So I don't have a whole lot of recollection of that. But what I do remember, in fact, it really is. I don't know if you guys can think back to what your very first memory is here. But my first memory, pretty much here on planet Earth, was when it was my dad's turn to go to Vietnam. And the night before he went, I remember my parents had tucked me in, and I had 4 of us boys. I was the oldest, I had 3 little brothers. And so they tucked us in, and I remember for whatever reason waking up that night and wandering into my parents' bedroom and just going in. And I remember pausing at the door there and looking in and just seeing my mom and dad in bed, just kind of holding on to each other and just crying. And so as soon as they saw me, they did what parents do. They came and they everything's fine. Everything's just fine. They tucked me back in. But even at 5 years old, I was only 5. I knew everything wasn't just fine. I knew that there's something really, really wrong going on. The next morning, my mom loaded us up in the station wagon. We were stationed down in Florida because what we were going to do is we were going to go to the end of the runway. My dad was actually going to fly in a squadron, going to fly their jets, their planes over to Vietnam. And so I remember as the planes, and there are these things called F-4s, just very loud planes. But I remember as the planes, they went over our head there, just kind of rumbling in the car, and I remember just kind of looking over at my mom, who was just kind of holding onto the steering wheel, just trying to kind of keep it together. I was only 5 years old, so I didn't know anything about the politics of the war. I didn't know anything about the economics of the war. I mean, these are all things I learned later on. But what I did know, at 5 years old, is that I was just very, very sad. And sometimes I think adults, we complicate things. Sometimes it's that simple message, that war makes me sad, or I don't like seeing animals hurt, or I want to take better care of the environment. You don't have to have all the answers, but sometimes just that simple message is really what we need, and what we as young people often do such a great job of reminding. And so as we've gone around the country, that's really been one of our messages: is say what you need to say. If whatever find that issue. You don't have to solve all the world's problems. But you as student journalists, as student media, when you guys are in a unique position, you have so much power. You have so much power. We've seen it. So find what matters and say what you need to say. And we thank you this morning for letting Mary Beth and I come in and say what we need to say. Oh, yes. So my dad.
Don't leave them hanging.
I know. My dad came home. Yes. And we just celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary after last year.
You got things you want to say? That's how we felt. We wanted to say something. We wanted to say something about the war. Now I know you have something you want to say. Well, I didn't know what to do, but my older brother, John, he was the wise guy with all the great ideas. He thought up this idea. Maybe we'll just wear black armbands to school. And he and his friend Chris Eckhart and some of the other kids at the high school, they had this idea. Just wear black armbands like this to school, and this will be our message. Is this the First Amendment? Yeah. It's symbolic speech, right? Anybody wearing a symbol? Anybody have some symbol on today? Are you saying a message? Yeah, right there. You got it right there. Hawkeye. All right. So he said, come on, Beth, you can do it too. That's what they call me, Beth. I said, I don't know. I'm kind of shy and I don't want to get in trouble. I got to go roller skating. They said, no, come on, you can do it. So I started thinking, well, maybe I could. I'm not sure. But the problem was 2 days before we were supposed to wear the armbands, the principals found out. And they had other ideas. They made a rule against armbands. Oh no, now we didn't know what to do. That was a real dilemma because we didn't want to break the rules, but then again we thought we should speak up and stand up. You know, it's the First Amendment. Kids should have rights. So in the end we decided we would try to do it, and I decided to pin on my armband, and even my little sister Hope, she did it too. She was in 5th grade and Paul was in 2nd grade. They said, we want peace, we want peace. So they even wore armbands to school. I was really scared and nervous, and I pinned on my armband. I started going to school. I picked up my friend Connie, which I always did. She said, you're going to get in trouble. You better take off that armband. I said, but Connie, I want to speak up about the war. And little by little, I started gaining confidence. Until I saw Mr. Moberly. Oh no, my math teacher, my favorite teacher, standing by math class with a pink slip in his hand. Now I knew I was in trouble for sure. So I took my pink slip, I had on my armband, I was gonna try to make a stand, and I walked down to the office, and I saw Mrs. Tarman, the girl's advisor, and she said, now sit down and take off that armband right now. I gave her my pink slip, I looked around the office, and a great stand of courage and conviction just ran out. And I said, okay, Mrs. Tarman, and here you go. I took it off, and I gave it to her. It would have been the end of the whole thing. I wouldn't be here today with you, but she said, you know, I've been thinking about it, and you're going to be suspended anyway, because you broke the rules. So I took my slip, and I took my papers, and I went home. I was scared. I was nervous. I didn't know what would happen. I didn't realize then, at the time, that Mrs. Tarman had just given me one of the greatest gifts of my life, a chance to spend my life telling young people how a shy girl from Iowa with just a little bit of courage can make a difference and speak up. Because when I got home, then my brother John got suspended, Chris Eckhart got suspended, a few other kids got suspended. And there was a group called the ACLU. They didn't think that was right, the American Civil Liberties Union. They thought kids should have rights too. And they came and talked to my parents, and they said, you know, we don't think it's right what the school did. These kids weren't hurting anyone. Why shouldn't kids have rights too? And so they took it to court. And it went to the district level where we lost, and then it went to the appeals level where we lost. And it went to the Supreme Court. Soon after that, when I was a junior in high school, the court ruled by 7-2. Bye, guys. Okay. The court finally ruled that kids do have rights in school. They said that neither students or teachers leave their rights at the schoolhouse gate, and that students are persons with rights and responsibilities also, and the schools shouldn't be enclaves of totalitarians. And so I grew up and I started telling kids about this story and other stories of young people all through history who are speaking up and standing up. And I started reading in so many school papers about kids who are speaking up and standing up. People like Katie Dean, she was up in Michigan, and found out that there was a lawsuit going on about pollution in that area from the school buses, and she wanted to write about it in the school paper. And the principal said, no, she can't do that. There was a journalism advisor that stood by her, and she eventually was able to prevail and write that article because it was true. And we have to know the truth to make things better and to change our world. So thank you, all of you journalists and all of the people who have had us here today. It's been so great to finish up our Tinker Tour here with all of you. And stand up for your rights! Now, we're going to open it up now for all of your questions. Are we going to have a panel? Hawkeye people, are you guys running a panel? All right. We're going to open it up for you guys now to stand up and speak up for what you want to speak up about. Who's got something you want to say? Now's your chance, guys. Don't be shy.
So what we were going to do is we're going to ask Eddie Mendoza and Nick Fiorillo. Eddie is the executive producer for HBN. Nick is the editor-in-chief of the Hawkeye. Give them an opportunity to talk to both Mike and Mary Beth, and then they'll help facilitate questions from you. Okay?
All right.
Sure. Hi. We have a question for you, Ms. Tinker. What is next for the Tinker Tour? I know this is your last stop for your American tour, but what's next? Where do you go from here?
What is next? Well, I was working as a nurse in a hospital with teenagers who have some kind of trauma. Car crash, shootings, things like that. So wear your seatbelts, guys, by the way. But I left there in September to go on the Tinker Tour, and now I decided I just like it so much, being with all of you. I'm just going to do this for the rest of my life. I'm just going to speak to students, young people, 4th graders, 5th graders, college students, law students, and encourage all of you to speak up and use your rights to make a better world.
So does that mean there's an international tour coming up?
Yeah, we're going international. No, I did go to Brazil about a week ago. That was pretty amazing. And I was speaking there with a bunch of human rights people from all over the world because this is a human rights issue. Children, teenagers, you should have a right to have input into your schools, your communities, your world. And so it's a human rights issue that people are speaking up about all over the world.
But we are kicking off our world tour
Oh
tomorrow.
yeah, that's true. Tomorrow.
Way exotic. Vancouver, British Columbia.
Yeah, we're going to Canada tomorrow. Yeah.
Sure. Mr. Houston, this is for you and Ms. Tinker as well. What are new challenges that student journalists and students face in this age of social media and technology as it relates to the First Amendment? What are some of the new challenges?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is, the Tinker case was really, it was the high watermark in terms of the law in this country for student speech. In 1969, kind of sad. I mean, most areas of law, we've gotten better and better, we've taken the world forward. But when it comes to student speech rights, on the legal front at least, Tinker was where we peaked out, and ever since that time we've had a number of cases that have started to cut back on the rights of student speech. I mean, if you're a student journalist, you know about the Hazelwood case, which significantly cut back on the rights of student speech. So the law is honestly one of the big challenges, and so, but social media, you asked about that. I mean, one of the nice things about social media, I think, is that in some ways, I mean, things like Hazelwood, which applies to in school, school-sponsored speech. I mean, with social media and some of the other options that are available, the law maybe isn't quite as relevant. I mean, speaking out is a human right. That shouldn't be dependent on any particular law.
Right, and speaking on that, you were talking about how the laws keep cutting back our rights as student press. What do you think someone who maybe wants to, let's say for the equal marriage or anything like that, someone who wants to stand up for that, as students, what is something that you recommend that they can do to progress in that?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we remind folks of is that, in 1965, you just heard about Mary Beth wearing her armband, but think about it, 1965, I mean, wearing an armband was one of the few speech tools that you actually had available to you, right? I mean, you could do that, you could maybe write a letter to the editor of the paper, you could engage in a protest, which was, obviously happened a lot in the 60s and 70s, but your speech tools were really pretty limited. I mean, think about today, though. Every one of you, I'm sure, or most of you have a smartphone. And when you think about the potential, you know, the speech tools, the many speech tools that are available on each one of every one of your smartphones, it's pretty mind-boggling and pretty encouraging. I mean, I'm pretty optimistic. I mean, I think that one of the things you guys, I mean, this was amazing. I mean, that you could actually, in the last session we had actual questions that were tweeted in. You know, that you can actually do things like that. So many of the schools we go to, though, that's been it's been amazing that you know, that these speech tools, rather than being embraced and seen as this just, you know, real valuable sort of opportunity, they're very often just, there's so much fear or ignorance surrounding them. You have complete bans, you know, check your cell phone at the schoolhouse gate, you know, sort of thing. And we got to do better. I mean, we've always depended on educators to help, you know, help our next generation get ready for the world in which they're going to live. And I don't think we're doing a very good job with it at a lot of schools when it comes to some of these new speech tools that are available.
Yeah, what do some of you think? Do you think, can you tweet, all the schools here, can you tweet during school? In your breaks? You can't tweet at all? Can't yourself? What could TK do if he wanted to start an effort, you know, he's saying, for example, gay rights. What's some things that you can do? What can you do? Yeah. You could have a club. Right. Join together. Your right to assemble. What else? Yeah? What could you guys do? Oh, you journalists. Yes? You could speak out. Yeah, you could have a meeting. You could, you know, plan something, have refreshments, get a bunch of people there, have a dance, have some fun. It should be fun changing the world, right? Yeah, come on.
So we want to open the question up to you guys. So over there by Demiro, he's by Mike.
Yeah, so we'll have a microphone here, and then when Eddie brings his out, there'll be a microphone there. We can just kind of go back and forth. Feel free to come up to the microphone, and if you would, just briefly state your name and maybe what school you're from, if you're not from Mount Lake Terrace especially, and then just address your question to our wonderful guests. And to start that off, I will read one question here that has been tweeted in, since Twitter isn't blocked here at Mount Lake Terrace High School. This is from Kirsty. She says, after the students got suspended, returned to school, back in your situation there in Des Moines, Iowa, how did the culture of the school change, or did it change at all?
It didn't really change. It just, you know, life went on. We kept going to our classes, kept doing our thing. The case worked its way through the courts. Nobody really hassled me at my school, I have to say. One teacher kind of made fun of me during class one day. And he said, well, there's going to be a big pep rally this weekend, so everybody be sure to come. But, oh, Mary Beth, I guess you've got more important things to do. You know, yeah. But at the other school, the vice principal had threatened to punch Chris Eckhart in the nose, but some other things like that happened. But life went on pretty much.
So
I mean, the war kept building up. That was the worst thing. The war just kept getting worse and worse and worse.
The rule was they weren't allowed to come back to school wearing the armbands.
Yeah.
So tell them what you...
Oh yeah, see here's the creativity of kids too. We decided, okay fine, we can't wear our armbands, we'll just wear all black clothes for the rest of the year. Now we'd probably get accused of being goth or something. We'd probably get, you know, like suspended for that. Yeah.
Well, hello, I'm Shadrach Straley, and I want to know, was it very hard going through the Supreme Court, you know, with all the legal stuff and, you know, going all the way to DC?
It was really strange because we just did this little small thing, you know, and we had no idea that it was going to be such a big deal. What made it hard was some of the haters. You know, the haters are always out there. These crazy people. It's the first time I realized how crazy they really are. And they'd send us things like this postcard. What was, in case we missed the message, right? Like, you know, hello. I have to hand it to him for the artwork. But what was that red thing? Hammer and sickle. And they were always saying, we're communists. And my mom would say, we're not communists, we're Methodists. Get that straight. Well, by then we were actually Quakers. We were Quakers. But yeah, the haters were out there. So they would send us, you know, hate mail and threaten to bomb our house on Christmas Eve, nice little things like that, and threaten to kill me. So this lady calls up and goes, is this Mary Beth? I said, yes. She goes, I'm going to kill you. These people are crazy. I was like, wait a second, we're just speaking up for peace. What's going on with with these crazy people.
She still gets the hate.
Yeah, we've been getting
some of the
some-
coverage on her Tinker Tour.
We got some
articles
lately.
are written. Yeah.
Someone wrote and said, oh yeah, all hippies should die. I was like, I'm not a hippie, I'm a nurse, come on. And even if I was, should they really die? Come on.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. That was the weird part about it. Yeah. Let's do poetry slams. Do you have poetry slams here? Come on, they're really fun.
Hi, I'm Jamie Jolliker from Mountain View High School from Auburn. And I was wondering if you think that things have really changed or if it's just like a surface thing.
What is it?
The rights for students for speaking out, do you think it's really changed or is it just a surface thing?
Yeah, I think things are really, there's something going on in the country with the rights of students and with students in general speaking up and standing up. There are all these student unions that are getting started, like the Philadelphia Student Union, the New York Student Union, the Rhode Island Student Union. In Rhode Island, they just were introducing yet another standardized test that these kids were going to have to take to graduate. So the kids in the Providence Student Union show up at the Rhode Island legislature dressed as guinea pigs and rats. Yeah, it was really brilliant. It went viral. And they said, we're not your guinea pigs, you know, go practice on something. And so anyway, these kids went down to Los Angeles recently where they had kids from all over the country meeting to talk about how they want to have a say in their schools and they want to have a voice. I think there's a lot going on right now.
And certainly, I mean, the Tinker, in terms of changing things, I mean, it was much more than just a surface change. I mean, one thing that I think hopefully came through is that, you know, the first two courts to actually hear Mary Beth's case, the district court and the appeals court, you know, actually ruled against them. So you had two American courts telling John Tinker, who was in high school, 16 years old, you know, in a couple of years he was going to be eligible to be shipped off to Vietnam. I mean, there was a mandatory draft going on. I mean, you had two courts saying that kids, you know, in high school, young adults, didn't even have the right to just wear a simple piece of black cloth to say, you know, we don't like this war, we don't like what's going on here. So I mean, her case really did change everything. I mean, it was really the first time that we heard clearly that yes, students are protected by the First Amendment. In her case, I mean, one thing, you know, it's in all your history books, right? I mean, it's in my daughter's history book up in Ferndale. But, you know, it's still the law. I mean, it is still the reason. It's been cited more than 6,000 times. It's still the reason. You all are protected. You all have the right to, you know, say what you need to say now in 2014.
Thank you.
I'm Adam Bartel from Snohomish High School, and my question is, in your opinion, what is the biggest injustice facing Americans today, and also what can we do about it?
Can you tell me, what is your idea about it? I'm really curious. Can you tell us, what is
My
your opinion?
idea about what?
What is your opinion? What is the biggest injustice?
Privacy rights.
Privacy rights?
More
Yeah, like
specifically, net
surveillance. More specifically what?
Net neutrality.
Net neutrality. Thank you. I think that's a huge issue as well. Net neutrality. Do you all agree? Who's the, yeah, come on, big issue. Net neutrality. Are we going to have, you know, people spying and surveilling us, and are we going to have to pay money to get on the net, to use the net? And is it going to be something more wealthy people can have more? I think that's a huge issue. What else are big issues? What else do you guys think? Who's got a big issue? Come on, you guys. What else? What? What'd you say? Don't say yoga pants. Huh? What? I mean, you can if that's your issue. Go ahead. Stand up for your rights. Huh? Gay rights. Gay rights is huge. Yeah. What else? Rising tuition is really big.
Washington State.
As we travel around, man, these state schools have been cut back. It's like always, you know, we have money for Raytheon, we have money for war, but sorry guys, we don't have money for your state schools. What else?
Unjust taxation.
Taxation? Unjust taxation, unfair taxation. I know. I have lots of friends working on that. How about in Washington, D.C., where I live? We pay taxes and we don't even have a senator or a representative. Yeah, how do you like that idea? What other issues? Who's got another one? What else are you guys speaking up about in your newspapers? Tell me about a good article that was in there lately. Yes, May 1st. There's a big march today in Seattle on what issue? Immigration. Immigration. What else? How about the environment? The environment. Now that's a problem, right? We got a crisis there. Yeah. Did you guys see that article in the Seattle Times yesterday about these poor little tiny microscopic creatures that are being wrecked because of CO2 in the ocean?
It's an
They're
acid
all
in
along
our
the coast of Washington and California. And without them, like the bigger creatures can't eat, you know.
Journalism, awesome.
Journalism is a huge issue. Wow. The direction of journalism.
Can we
What?
take another?
Gun rights.
I'm sorry.
Gun rights. It's a big issue too.
Can we take a couple more from
Wow.
Twitter here?
Oh, yeah.
And we have a couple people who are tweeting in that aren't even here because of the live stream, which is pretty cool.
Great.
I will ask a question. This is from Pam Moore with the Newton Street Group in Seattle. And she asks, you have been touring and talking to individual groups. Is there any kind of effort to coordinate action after you've gone and toured to these different groups and different schools and community groups?
There are efforts going on in the country to coordinate youth voices. And one is Students for Public Education. And that's the one that had this group in Los Angeles that met recently at a conference in Los Angeles. But there are other groups, environmental groups, Teens Turning Green, just different groups around the country that are standing up. Safe Schools Coalition.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're just trying to coordinate how to get through each day. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that we are hoping to maybe turn this into some. They're going to do a documentary, I think, on the Tinker Tour. But I mean, we have one of the wonderful things that we've been able to do is we've gone from schools and juvenile detention facilities, colleges, Indian reservations. I mean, we've been able to talk to kids in so many different places under so many different circumstances. I mean, again, Mary Beth mentioned. I mean, just this the economic diversity that's out there. This the haves and have-nots, and we've gone into schools and we've seen the difference in what that makes. The experience that kids have, when they're in a have-not school versus a have school. So we've been given, we really have been given this unique opportunity to kind of look behind the doors where not everybody always gets to go. So yeah, we have to figure out what to do with this, I think.
So many people are standing up, so many young people, the Dreamers, the Dream Defenders, they succeeded in getting legislation introduced in Florida, or Trayvon's Law. Just so much going on. There's really... Seattle, how about the coal trains? You guys heard about what's going on with that? Sure. That's really building up. All this dust and pollution that's coming through with the coal trains, and we just met some young people that were going to a training to speak up about that.
Civil disobedience when it comes to watching the trains.
And last session you had Will Kennedy from Mount Terrace here was wearing his minimum wage shirt.
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of students have been fighting for those rights as well.
Minimum wage,
I'll give you one more question from Twitter, and then I definitely would like to encourage other people, if you have a question, just come down to either one of these microphones. This is from Jody, and she wants to know, what were your parents' reactions when you got suspended? Were they supportive from the beginning?
I was lucky that my parents were supportive. My dad wasn't so sure in the beginning, but then we persuaded him because we said, look, Dad, how you speak up for what you believe in, which he had given us his example. And so we were able to win him over. I was really lucky in that way. The harassment didn't come from my parents. It came from more some of the adults in the community who threatened us. But we were lucky that our parents stood by us.
So are there others that have any questions? Feel free to come down. Come on.
Recent studies show that the U.S. is now considered an oligarchy instead of a democracy or republic. What do you think that says about our rights as citizens?
What do you think it says? You're saying that the U.S., some people say that we're an oligarchy now. We're not really a democracy.
That study just came out last week, I think, where they I forget what the group was. Do you remember what the group was that said that?
No.
Princeton University.
Saying that we're an oligarchy.
No longer a democracy.
How do you all feel about that? What does that mean to you? I mean, in a way, it wasn't ever really a democracy where kids are involved because kids haven't really had a say.
What's the
Yeah, what's an oligarchy? What do you say about that?
Oligarchy is where a few specific, very powerful and influential people rule over governance, politics by themselves, even though they aren't elected officials.
So kind of the 1% sort of idea.
Sort of the one.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that one of the reasons we did the Tinker Tour is because of our concern, and I think it's backed up by so many studies out there about the state of civics education. You know, there's this idea out there that somehow, you know, we're going to let these kids, you know, go through, you know, 12 years of school, and we're not going to teach them anything, but somehow magically at 18 years old, we ship them out the door, flip on some sort of citizen switch, and they know how to exercise their rights. They know, you know, why we have a free press, and they know, you know, what free speech is all about. Sometimes it means you have to tolerate speech you don't like. But unfortunately, those lessons, you know, that switch doesn't really work, and those lessons aren't really being taught. And you know, if you don't teach those lessons, if you don't nurture, if you believe, you know, you know, democracy is important or a free press is important, I mean, those are things that you have to nurture. You have to talk about why those are important, what the costs are, because there are costs. And one of the things we've seen is that that's not being done in a lot of places. I mean, there's all this standardized testing, you know, teaching for math and science and things like that. You know, civics education is kind of taken a back burner. And I think, you know, we're seeing the results of that. I mean, we're seeing the results of cases like Hazelwood, where you're told all about this wonderful First Amendment in your civics class or your history class or whatever, but when you try and actually exercise those rights in your newspaper class, I mean, there's no way you're going to do it. So, I mean, I think those sorts of lessons, those sorts of, you know, that's having an impact as we go forward. We're seeing that kind of manifest in studies like the one that you just mentioned.
Yeah, we have to speak up and stand up and make democracy real. We don't want to live under an oligarchy. At least I don't.
So my name is Eliza Vollester. I'm part of the Hawkeye, and I actually had the pleasure of writing about your visit last year at the Washington Journalism Convention. My question for you is, well, I wrote an article this year about our school traditions regarding the graduation stoles that are usually worn by students for graduation. But although a staff member that I interviewed said that even though we have traditions, not all traditions are correct. And what can you say about some staff members that are hesitant about changes to the school traditions and, you know, the effects of that to...
Like, you're saying that you want to change something, but maybe some staff say, no, we have to keep doing it the way we've always done?
Yes, that's correct.
Or so, yeah, what can you say? What can you do to that? I mean, that's going to happen a lot in life, right? There's always going to be people, like these people at the swimming pool in Iowa when I was growing up, we tried to get it so that black kids could swim there. And the people that ran it said, well, that's the way we've always done it. So what can you do, guys? What could she do if they're trying to do something different at the school? And the staff goes, well, no, we don't want to change that because that's the way we've always done it. Give her some ideas, guys. Yeah. You could get a petition. You could show that, hey, a lot of people really want to change it. We're ready to change. What else? Create a following. Get together with some other people that really want to make that their issue. They want to change this. You know, maybe they want to have, like, I don't know, change something about the prom or... Well, do you have an example? Was there something specifically you want to change? Was there something you were thinking of specifically?
So there's no real tradition here of having any kind of identifier outwardly at our graduation ceremonies, whereas some schools will have cords or stoles and that kind of thing. Yeah, and so that, you know, you can kind of acknowledge students by what they have on at graduation. So yeah.
So you'd like to do that.
Yeah.
And people say no, because we never did it before. But that's not good enough, right? Just because we never did it before, I mean, let's clean up the environment. Well, we never did it before.
Probably have time for 2 more questions. We have 2 people here, so that works out just right. So.
Hi, I'm TK Johnson from Mountain Terrace Hawkeye. I'm a photographer. So what are your thoughts on photographers for both news and sports? Their rights, they're a little bit different than regular journalists. So what are your thoughts on photography rights?
We love photography, right, Mike?
Like Mary Beth talked about, I mean, the power of journalism.
The power of
pictures.
photography, wow.
As you know, I mean, the power of a photojournalist is people
It's a
don't
wonderful-
often, or these days, sometimes don't read the articles, but they see the pictures, so.
I wish I would have thought of being a photographer. My grandfather was a photographer. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Do you have any particular, are you having legal issues as far as your
No, I just heard about, Vince was talking about a student where they took a picture during a fight and then the police wanted the picture and the photographer didn't give it up and it went to Supreme Court and everything.
Oh, yeah, the famous Mud Lake issue from back in the 90s, where you had one of your editors here. They saw a fight taking place and police came in to demand the photos, and she dared to say no. And why would she say no? I mean, there were
she took the picture. It's her picture.
a lot of people in the community were upset, that she actually wouldn't, comply with the police request, but she said no. And journalists, there's a strong tradition in the press of, we don't want, as journalists, we don't want to be seen as kind of extensions of law enforcement. I mean, if we're seen as kind of, the tools of law enforcement, I mean, our sources are going to dry up. They're not going to, when they see us with our cameras, they're going to turn on us. They're not going to let us tell our story. So yeah, she actually, I mean, there was a chance. This is a big case that Vince and I talked about quite a lot. I mean, there was a chance at one time that Stacy was actually going to go to jail because of her courage and not complying with the police's request. Here at Montlake, yeah, pretty amazing.
Wow, yeah, I've heard about that. And Vince was pretty involved with that too, right? Yeah.
Okay, hello, my name is Maya Wiseman and I'm from the Ballard High School, Towson. So we have a really interesting situation at our school right now. It's kind of a protest situation. It's mostly prompted from all the nice weather we've been having, and our administration has recently started to enforce our dress code a lot. And so that's been really interesting because they're mostly targeting girls. And a lot of the complaints from the girls at our school is that they're trying to kind of perpetuate the whole rape culture and victim blaming of our school because they're saying that boys are distracted by what girls are wearing, and that's why they're not allowed to wear short skirts or revealing.
Go girls!
So there's actually a protest tomorrow, which is pretty cool, and I was just wondering if you had any advice to.
I mean, this is a really big issue. Yeah, as we travel around the country, girls having unequal dress codes. A lot of girls all over are talking about this exact issue. And to me, it's like anything you see in life that you think is unfair going on. You have two choices. You can either do nothing or you can do something. And doing something is a lot more interesting. But then you have to figure out what to do. You can use your 5 rights of the First Amendment. You can, maybe speak up. You can write something. You can talk about it. You can have a little group assembly, whatever.
So they're going to assemble tomorrow. They're going to use that right tomorrow, it sounds like.
Now, when you do something that is against the rules, you have to be ready to take the consequences. Like our armbands, we were ready to be suspended. Martin Luther King, he was ready to go to jail, right? So if you're doing something that means you're going to be breaking the rules, then you have to be willing to, and of course we want everything that we ever do to be peaceful. Never want to use violence, of course, but so that's the thing, if you stand up and speak up, yeah, and if you break the rules, then be ready to accept the consequences. That's the only thing about that.
And be creative.
Yeah, be
creative. That's where the power of young people come in. I don't know what you're planning in your protest tomorrow, but think of ways to just get it out there in this powerful, creative.
Yeah, like those kids that dressed up like guinea pigs and rats. What are you gonna do? Did you decide yet?
Well, there's one girl that's been making T-shirts that say "My clothing does not define me." So I think that's mostly like the whole gist of it.
Are there going to be guys involved?
Hopefully.
I hope so. Yeah.
Will you give me one of those shirts? I want to get one of those shirts.
Anything?
Yeah, get some guys in there too. That's a good idea. You already got followers. You have followers.
That's a great way to finish out there.
Yeah,
A little
that's great.
enthusiasm. Looking forward to the next little mini revolution down at Ballard. Is that right? Am I getting that straight?
Ballard.
Ballard, all right.
Go Ballard. So would you, first off, please help me thank both Mike and Mary Beth for being with us today. Is there anything, any final comments that you guys have? I don't want to.
Comments? I just say thanks, everybody. Stand up for your rights. Get out there and use that, free press. Keep it alive. Definitely. I know you will.
So, yeah, thank you very much. Let's thank them one more time.
We've got armbands for you guys. We've got armbands. We've got newsletters from the Student Press Law Center. We've got all kinds of fun stuff. So come on down.
So as soon as this is over, if you are from Mount Lake Terrace High School and not on the Hawkeye or HBN staff, we want to thank you for coming, and you are certainly dismissed to go to, I guess it would be 5th period next, I believe. If you are not from Mount Lake Terrace High School, as I mentioned as we began, John Floating and his staff from the ACLU have been just so gracious. They were going to provide you with a little something down in our hub to help you since you missed your lunch. So we have Hawkeye staff members. They're pretty easy to identify because they've got their Hawkeye t-shirts or sweatshirts. Most of them, some of them don't. So they will escort you or at least direct you to our hub, which is where we have our lunch, and that's just downstairs outside the theater. Then there are 2 stairways down. And John, why don't you wave your hand, because we want to thank you and your staff for helping us out. But certainly if you want to talk to Mike and Mary Beth, would you guys consider maybe joining us down in the hub for just a little bit too? Sure. Yeah, here.
Yeah, definitely. And also for all you teachers, I want to tell you that there's an institute coming up, a Judicial Institute in June and July. It's all free. Just see me. It's a hotel free. It's a week-long institute. It's going to be really interesting. I'm going to be at one of the sessions. And so all you teachers, come on and talk to me. MaryBethTinker@gmail. I'll tell you more about it.
All right, thank you. So if you are one of our guests, you can certainly come up here and talk to them real quick, then we'll head you guys down to the hub. And again, thank you on behalf of all of us here at Mount Lake Terrace High School. Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks to Mike and Mary Beth.